In this video, we will discuss the current UK spouse visa fees and costs in 2024. We will discuss whether you'll be making an application from outside or from inside the UK, as this is important to know because the spouse visa fees and costs are different, the standard spouse visa fee, the optional priority service and the costs associated with that, the immigration health surcharge, other costs which partners sometimes initially overlook, and we will discuss answers to frequently asked questions about all of the above. As an OISC regulated UK immigration law firm that has helped more than 4,600 partners obtain their UK partner visas, we're very well placed to discuss this. Let's first quickly establish whether you'll be making the application from outside or from inside the UK. As previously mentioned, the fees are different, but so too are the process and requirements, so it's crucial to know. To make an application from inside the UK, in other words, make an in-country application, the applicant must be in the UK when the application is submitted. They must have a visa granted for a period exceeding 6 months, unless they're in the UK on a fiancé or proposed civil partnership visa. And finally, they must not be in the UK as a visitor. Rather, applicants who are in the UK as a visitor are expected to return to their country of nationality or legal residence and submit the out-of-country application there. So, if the applicant does not have any UK visas, they must apply from outside the UK, i.e. they can only make an out-of-country application. And this is the case even if the UK partner, the sponsor, completes the online application on the applicant's behalf and helps by submitting the documents. The current standard UK spouse visa fee in 2024 is £1,846 for applications made from outside the UK and £1,258 for applications made from inside the UK. These figures are the cost per person applying for a UK spouse or partner visa. Therefore, if you have dependent children who are also applying for a visa at the same time as their parent, you'll also have to pay the same fee for the Home Office to process their visa, as shown in this table. Please note the word applying. Dependent children who are British or Irish citizens or who already have settled status do not need to apply for a visa and will therefore not need to pay either the Home Office fee or the immigration health surcharge, which we will talk about later in this video. For example, the applicant wants to make an out-of-country application and has 3 children. One child is a US national and will be joining their parent to the UK, one child is a US national and will be staying with their other parent in the US, and one child is a British citizen and will be joining their parent in the UK. Here there will be one dependent child applying, so the total standard Home Office fee will be £3,692. Let's now discuss the priority UK spouse visa fee before discussing the immigration health surcharge, as well as commonly asked questions such as when the fee is paid, the importance of the date that the fee is paid, the situations that these will be refunded, and other costs that you may have to incur. The priority service is an optional additional cost service that will reduce the standard processing time. We have a separate video discussing the UK spouse visa processing time and optional priority service, so we won't elaborate too much on that here and we'll just focus on costs. For out-of-country applications, a priority service is normally available, which will reduce the processing time to 30 working days on average at a cost of £500. For an up-to-date account of the current processing times and the availability of the priority service, feel free to check out our spouse visa processing time article on our website, www.migrate.org.uk. For in-country applications, partners can opt for the super priority service, which will reduce the processing time to 1 working day on average at the cost of £1,000. You will note that we have not included the priority fee for in-country applications. As of the shooting of this video, it is not offered as an option. Once you've completed the questions in the online application form and have paid the immigration health surcharge, which is another cost that we will also discuss shortly, you will reach the Home Office application fee payment page. For out-of-country applications where the priority service is available, this can currently be purchased at 2 stages of the application. It's worth noting that, in the past, the priority service has been available for purchase on the online application form payment page. As of shooting this video, this is not currently being offered here, although this may change in the future. If the priority service is not listed on the application form payment page, and assuming that you're not applying from a tiny minority of countries such as Cuba, where the application process is slightly different, the priority service can be purchased on the VFS or TLS website. We explain the spouse and partner visa process and the role that VFS and TLS play in our UK spouse visa process YouTube video, so if you want to learn more about that, feel free to check that out. It's now the case that some visa centres may allow the priority service to be purchased when the applicant attends the visa centre. For in-country applications, the Super Priority service can only be purchased when you reach this page. It cannot be purchased on the UK VCAS website, which you'll be redirected to after submitting the application by paying the Home Office fee on the online application form payment page. For partners who want to opt for the Super Priority service for an in-country application but do not see the Super Priority service being offered here, if the expiry date of the visa permits, it may be worthwhile to check this page at a later time before you make payment for the Home Office fee. Super Priority appointments usually are released daily. A hidden cost here is due to the fact that the Home Office fee and immigration health surcharge for out-of-country applications are rarely charged in British pounds. More commonly, it is the case that the fee will be listed in USD, Euros, or another currency, depending on the country in which the applicant will be applying from. Perhaps more significantly is the exchange rate the Home Office use, resulting in partners sometimes having to pay up to 5% above or below in the overseas currency compared to the rate that you will see on Google or another popular exchange rate platform. In-country applications, on the other hand, are always charged in British pounds. The date that this spouse visa fee is paid is significant. For both out-of-country and in-country applications, it is on this date that the requirements must be met. In the immigration rules and online application, this is called the date of application. For example, Steve relied on his employment income to satisfy the financial requirement. 2 days after submitting the online application by paying the Home Office fees, he quit his job. This is technically irrelevant to the application and should be fine because again, the relevant date that the requirements must be met is when the Home Office fees are paid. Let's quickly address Home Office fee refunds and when they will be issued. Firstly, the Home Office fee will unfortunately not be refunded for refused applications. Secondly, if the application is withdrawn before the applicant attends the visa centre, a refund will be issued. And thirdly, if the application is withdrawn after the applicant attends the visa centre, a refund will not normally be issued. Let's now discuss the Immigration Health Surcharge. The Immigration Health Surcharge, otherwise referred to as the IHS, is a mandatory payment that provides applicants with access to the National Health Service. Unfortunately, the fact that either the applicant or sponsor has already paid thousands in UK tax does not change the fact that this fee must be paid. For out-of-country applications, the IHS will cost £3,105, and for in-country applications, this will cost £2,587.50. Like the Home Office fee, the IHS must be paid for each dependent child applying. Furthermore, it's worth noting that all the IHS is paid up front here. You cannot pay in monthly or yearly instalments. So, if there are no dependent children applying, the total Home Office fee and immigration health surcharge cost for an out-of-country application will be £4,951. For an in-country application, the total will be £3,845.50. The payment for the immigration health surcharge is made as part of the online application process. For both out-of-country and in-country applications, the IHS is paid before payment of the Home Office fee using a credit or debit card. There are two other things worth noting here. Firstly, out-of-country fiancé visa applicants do not have to pay the IHS for the fiancé visa application. They must, however, pay the IHS for the subsequent FLRM application, which they will have to submit before the 6-month fiancé visa expires. And secondly, the IHS will be refunded if a partner visa application is refused or withdrawn, even if the applicant attended the biometric appointment. Let's now discuss the other more minor costs associated with the application that partners are not always initially aware of. 1. Document translations. The immigration rules state that specific documentation not in English or Welsh must be translated. The cost for this will depend on what documents you need translated, most typically marriage certificates, divorce certificates and bank statements, and how many words or pages those documents are. The cheaper translators in the UK tend to charge about £60 to translate a one-page document and £85 to translate a two-page document. There are a few quick points worth making about document translations. 1. The translation can be done both in the UK and overseas. If you prefer to get the translation done by an overseas translator, which can be much cheaper than UK translators, you can find a list of overseas translators by googling List of Translators and Interpreters Abroad gov.uk. 2. The immigration rules list specific document translation requirements. The translation must be dated and include 1. Confirmation that it is an accurate translation of the document. 2. The full name and signature of the translator or an authorized official of the translation company. And 3. The translator or translation company's contact details. And if you're submitting an in-country application, the translation must include certification by a qualified translator and details of the translator or translation company's credentials. And it's also worth noting that if a document is in English and other languages, such as marriage certificates from Denmark, which often helpfully contain 5 or so different languages, the document will not need to be translated. 2. TB test costs. As we discussed in our 1 hour plus spouse visa requirements video, which can be found on our website, certain out-of-country applicants will need to pay for a TB test. TB test costs tend to vary quite a bit, but on average these tend to cost between £65 and £110. Since the TB test requirement can also apply to dependent children who are applying with the applicant, the TB test fee may also apply to them. 3. Secure English language test costs. The different secure English language test costs vary from £150 to £200. There are a few quick points I want to point out here. 1. Not any English language test will do. Instead, the test must be a Home Office approved secure English language test. We list these tests on our website www.migrate.org.uk. 2. There are other ways to satisfy the English language requirement which will incur no additional cost for certain applicants. Most notably, if the applicant is a majority English speaking national, is age 65 or over when the application is submitted, or already has an academic undergraduate degree or above awarded in the UK. We discussed the various ways to satisfy the English language requirement on our website and in our spouse visa requirements YouTube video. 3. Dependent children who are also applying will not need to take an English language test, as the English language requirement does not apply to them. And finally, it's worth pointing out that, to save money, if the applicant's English language ability is good enough, the applicant can choose to sit an A2 or B1 test. This is because, even though the secure English language tests are only valid for 2 years, in most situations the English language test can be reused if a partner visa application is being extended and it was successfully relied on in the previous partner visa grant. 4. Other additional services such as document scanning. There are several optional added value services available at visa application centres. These vary by location and you should look at these on the UK VCAS website if you're making an in-country application, or the VFS or TLS websites depending on what country the application is being submitted from. For out-of-country applications, one service which we want to highlight is the Keep My Passport service, which usually costs between £50 and £75 depending on the visa centre. This service can be very useful if the applicant wishes to travel whilst the visa is being processed, or even come to the UK if the applicant has the correct documentation to do so. For in-country applications, applicants will always retain possession of their passport as part of the standard process, but please note that if the applicant leaves the UK whilst the application is processing, this will withdraw the application. We do not generally recommend the document scanning service, which tends to cost between £15 and £95. Partners tend to prefer the free alternative, which is to self-upload the supporting documentation. For a detailed 1 hour plus video on the UK spouse visa requirements in 2024, feel free to check this video here. We also have a video on our website, migrate.org.uk, that discusses the UK spouse visa process in 2024 step by step.